Hi everyone, I'm Brock Sungroth. I am a high school art teacher at Mendota High School in Mendota, Illinois. We are about 1 hour straight west of Chicago, about 20 miles north of Interstate 80, north of LaSalle, Peru. Um, our school's demographics are, we have 68% of the school population is white, 30.7% is Hispanic, and the 3%, or excuse me, 0.3% black and 0.3% Asian. Uh, we are a 44.5% low income school district, and we are a separate school district in the high school than our junior high and elementary programs. Our junior high and elementary program is their own district, and they have an art program that reaches from around the second grade through eighth grade. Usually, where they're more project based than anything else. They are good art teachers. We try to get our districts together and coordinate as much as we possibly can from our high school program to our elementary and junior high program. So we do talk and try to make sure that the students coming into the high school are getting what they need by the time that they come into my program in the high school. I am the only art teacher at our high school. I teach the classes of an Art 1, which is a basic art for any level. I have drawing, advanced drawing, ceramics, advanced ceramics, painting and advanced painting, and I do a digital art class, which is more of a Photoshop class than anything else. The reason that I chose Vincent van Gogh to me has always been one of my favorite artists. I thoroughly enjoy his brush strokes. I look at any of his pieces of art, and the ones that stand out the most to me are the ones that the brushstrokes are more prominent with. And in fact, I notice myself a lot of times as I'm painting my own paintings, I sometimes tend to mimic Van Gogh's brushstrokes just because I find it so interesting. I wanted to do this project though on Van Gogh's self-portraits because that is not something I have studied as much, his portrait work or his self-portraits. I've been more interested in his landscapes, in the sunflowers, in Starry Night, some of his other pieces of artwork, and I thought this would be a great way for me to expand my knowledge about why Van Gogh did so many self-portraits. One of the things that I wanted to try to touch on, and basically the thesis of my paper, in essence, will be Van Gogh used the study of self-portraiture to increase his own ability to someday do portraiture for a commission. I want to try to answer three basic questions throughout my paper, being, how did Van Gogh's color study change the way he created self-portraits? Why did his brushstrokes become more prominent as time passed? It's basically known at the time that Van Gogh found the work of Georges Seurat to be almost scientific with his experimentation of colors. And through this time, Vincent felt that each and every brushstroke with color affected the viewer and how they saw his work. It's also why he worked so hard with his exaggerated brushstrokes. The third question that I want to try to answer, why at this time in history was he not commissioned for portraiture? Now, it is known that he did portraits, and the thing that a lot of people don't realize is he was never commissioned to do these portraits. These were portraits that were studies of his. He also did all the self-portraiture basically to increase his own ability. He says in a letter to his brother in September 16th of 1888, quote, "I purposely bought a mirror good enough to enable me to work from my image in default of a model, because if I can manage to paint the coloring of my own head, which is not to be done without some difficulty, I shall likewise be able to paint the heads of other good souls, men and women," unquote. He also said in his letters, if you read his letters, I've not gone through everyone, but I have read quite a few of them. He talks about how he believes portraiture is the way of the future. With that being said, I'm going to go in chronological order here of his portraits and give you a little view of each one of them. This portrait is Self-Portrait with Pipe. It's oil on canvas. It was done in spring of 1886. This isn't Van Gogh's very first self-portrait, but it is an important one nonetheless. Basically, as you look at this portrait or self-portrait, you'll notice the dark background. He had a dark use of colors of this. As you go through and you take a look at his brushstrokes, you can slightly see how his brushstrokes affected the painting. Yet, in his face and the background, they don't contrast very much, and it doesn't stand out like he does in his other self-portraits. His next portrait in order here is Self-Portrait with Straw Hat. And that's not the one that I wanted to bring up there. There it is. Okay. Self-Portrait with Straw Hat right here. This one was done just 1 year later, and you really notice in the background the brush strokes. Almost though they don't really have a sense of purpose in this portrait as much as they do in some of the other ones. He has the short brush strokes, some of them winding up, some of them across, surrounding the straw hat. The straw hat has the brush strokes going through, and you see what I notice really is the brush strokes through the face. The other thing that's really noticeable in every one of his self-portraits are his eyes. They're gazing at you, but it's not as if they're looking at you. It's almost like they're staring through you. Some of the self-portraits, as you look at, he just has this look of sadness, or like he's lost in each one of them. Moving on to the next one, and make sure I get the right one in order here. It is right here. Okay, this self-portrait is just entitled Self-Portrait, done oil on canvas in summer of 1887. And what I find interesting about this one is this is not his third self-portrait. This is one of many in the line of self-portraits, but done a year after the one with the straw hat. And you'll notice the background has lost, it doesn't have any of the brush strokes. Although you see some of the brush strokes through the hair, the face also is lacking in the brush strokes, although the eyes still are peering at you, and you do notice a few of the brush strokes through the face. And here it is again in his jacket, as he's wearing his jacket. What is noticeable in this is the contrast from the background to his face. There's a much stronger contrast in comparison to his self-portrait that I showed of his first self-portrait, where the face and the background are so dark and hard to view almost. The fourth self-portrait I'll show you in the line really prominently shows the brush strokes. And it was around this time where he was more noticeably influenced by Seurat. I find this interesting because if you take the work of Seurat and compare it, you'll notice how he's using different colors. Each brush stroke is a different color. It's very similar to how Seurat had different dots in his pointillism to make your eye see different. This image looks quite different from a distance than it does up close. You also see the brush strokes in the background, and the brush strokes are created in such a way that they almost bring your eye into the center. It's like almost a slightly moving background on the outside. The background works right into the jacket, and you'll notice how the background and the jacket are similar. And again, like with so many of his other self-portraits, his face tends to be the focal point because of the difference, the contrast his face and his red hair have from the background of the image. Next self-portrait in chronological order is interesting to me for the fact that this self-portrait is Self-Portrait with Pipe and Straw Hat, done in August of 1888, and it was done on cardboard. as you read through any of Van Gogh's books, you realize he did a lot of studies before he did the final copy of an image. In this self-portrait, Van Gogh displays less use of color, but brings your eyes to a focal point with a few hints of black right here in his face. His eyes don't seem to be as piercing. In this image, they seem to be looking at you almost as if they're questioning, do you see what he is thinking? Along the lines, so here we go. The next self-portrait in chronological order comes sometime around 14 days to a month after he had lopped off his left ear. And I love this self-portrait. It's obviously a very famous and well-known self-portrait that's mocked in modern art. I loved it, though, because it was his left ear that he lopped off. And in the self-portrait, when you explain it, of course, as you explain it to students, it's his right ear that you view because he was looking in a mirror that he had bought for himself to do his self-portraits. Another great thing about this self-portrait is the Japanese woodcut that's in the background. And that's in reference to a lot of his earlier studies about art and how he really used the Japanese woodcuts to help influence his own artistic styles. We move on to another one with the ear. And what I find interesting about this one, what really makes this one prominent to me, is the orange and dark orange background with the contrasting greens and grays. And his face in this one almost blends into the background. Now his eyes in this one, they seem more sad, almost as if there's that loneliness that he has realized after his roommate, Gogh, had left him, which is part of the reason why he kind of went into his fit of hysteria and cut off his ear. As we move to the last picture in the work, let's see where it is. There it is. This one is my favorite. And I didn't do it right or something. There we go. All right. This is my absolute favorite Vincent van Gogh self-portrait. This is considered by historians to be his last self-portrait. I love this one because of the light blue in the background, the light blue vest jacket that he's wearing, the white collared shirt, actually not a collar, but the white shirt underneath. The background is reminiscent of Starry Night in the swirls and the moving background. The entire background seems as if it has its own purpose, and that carries on into the jacket. Then you look at his face, and that becomes very much so the focal point, with his eyes again peering through you, and there almost seems to be that sense of understanding and realizing that he's coming towards the end of his life at this point in time. You see the brush strokes, though not as prominent through the face as they are in the background, and I think that brings you more into what you see in the face and understanding of what's going on in this Vincent van Gogh self-portrait. So with that, again, I wanted to make sure, as I do my study on Vincent van Gogh and his self-portrait, that I'm focusing on understanding why he wasn't commissioned at the time. And through understanding a lot of his artwork and understanding that he wasn't actually very well received in the communities that he lived in, basically because of his mental health issues. I really hope that this helps anybody, and that if you have any other good information on Van Gogh or anything like that, I would love to hear about it. Thank you very much, and I plan to enjoy viewing every single one of your videos also.